I think the Miami Dolphins are another team that's a dark horse Super Bowl contender. We know that the AFC is way more stacked compared to the NFC conference. And in the AFC, when you're going against pretty much some of the NFL's top quarterbacks, you're going to need a good defense. And what did the Miami Dolphins do to address their defense? Well, they traded for star cornerback Jalen Ramsey. They pretty much got him for a bag of chips and a flat soda. And then they hired defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, who replaces Josh Boyer. Now, if you are somebody who doesn't pay attention to staff moves and you bet a lot of money when it comes to the NFL, you need to be paying attention to the addition of Vic Fangio. This guy is a legendary defensive coordinator. He's been coaching on the defense side of the football longer than most of you guys watching this have been alive. He's one of the most, if not the most influential defensive coordinator in the NFL. Do you know how many teams are running Vic Fangio's kind of defense, or at least their own iteration of it? I mean, look at Brandon Staley. He's a Vic Fangio disciple. The dude who was the Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator last year, Ed Donatel, he was running an iteration of this Vic Fangio kind of defense, even though it wasn't good. So you have the grandfather of what is one of the most influential defenses in the modern day NFL right now. And his defenses are really good at limiting big plays. It forces offenses and the opposing quarterbacks to check down, throw short passes. And what makes this defense so hard to have success against is the fact that it's mostly ran out of two deep safeties. Well, at least when you have two deep safeties on the field. And what Vic Fangio does is that out of these two deep looks, he rotates guys around. He doesn't really have to send a lot of pressure to get you off the field. It's a little bit of a conservative defense in the sense, but at the same time, it's still good at being able to keep opposing offenses from scoring a lot of points. When you look at how good Vic Fangio's defenses were when he was the head coach for the Denver Broncos, they were top 10 in points per game allowed. Twice out of the 3 seasons, he was the head coach of the Denver Broncos. And the only 1 year when they didn't have a top 10 defense when it came to points per game allowed was due to the fact that their offense was so bad and their defense was on the field more than what they should have been. Not only does he have a really good defense when it comes to not giving up a lot of points, but his defenses are also really good in the red zone. And a lot of teams scored the majority of their touchdowns in the red zone. That's one of the most important things when it comes to evaluating how good a defense is. When offenses get inside the 20, can you keep them from scoring TDs and force them to come away with field goals? And during Vic Fangio's time, when he was the head coach of the Broncos, they were top 3 in red zone defense every single season he was there. And he also had a fantastic red zone defense when he was the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. And when you look at the talent that he's going to be inheriting on this Miami Dolphins defense, this has the potential to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. Christian Wilkins, we know this dude is a dog at that defensive tackle position. This guy kind of plays defensive tackle sort of like he's another linebacker. This dude is probably the most athletic defensive tackle in the NFL. And yes, I do put him up there with Aaron Donald and Chris Jones. He may not be as good as a pass rusher as those guys are, but this dude is fantastic when it comes to his ability to stop the run. Jalen Phillips, this is a 10-sack guy. This is somebody who has the potential to end up being an all-pro this year for the Miami Dolphins. Bradley Chubb, you remember when the Dolphins traded for him during the middle portion of last year, and then we didn't hear anything from him? Bradley Chubb is going to be reunited with his former head coach, and Bradley Chubb said that Vic Fangio was one of the favorite coaches that he ever played under. So Vic Fangio is going to be able to elevate Bradley Chubb and get Bradley Chubb playing at the level that many Dolphins fans expected him to play when this organization first traded for him. Then we already know about how good this secondary is going to be. We know about Jalen Ramsey, and some of you guys think that Jalen Ramsey is in a state of decline. Jalen Ramsey is not declining. He still played at a top 5, top 3 level at cornerback last season. Now, could you make the argument and say that Jalen Ramsey isn't the best cornerback in the NFL anymore? I mean, you can, but right now, who is better than Jalen Ramsey? I still would put him as the best cornerback in the NFL. I don't know who you guys just think is better than Jalen Ramsey right now, but at least I think we can all agree with saying that Jalen Ramsey is a top 3, no worse than top 5 cornerback in the game right now. He's still in his prime. You got Xavier Howard, who this dude was getting burnt a lot last season. And with Vic Fangio coming in, his defense should help to bring Xavier Howard back to the performance level that he was having prior to last year. Then we have Javon Holland, who is right now one of the 5 best safeties in the game at this moment. So this is a really talented defense that Vic Fangio is going to have going into this year. And when you look at the AFC East, you're going to have to play against Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be good that you're going to have a defensive coordinator that runs this kind of defense that's going to be able to limit the big plays that Buffalo is going to have. Because you know, one thing about the Buffalo Bills, they're really good at generating explosive plays, especially in the passing game. And with Vic Fangio, even though he runs a defense that's predicated on too high looks, he's able to rotate those guys around and confuse QBs. Hell, you may end up thinking that he's running a cover 3 or a cover 1 defense, and then after the play begins, he ending up switching the rotations of the safeties. The safeties end up rotating in a different way that confuses the quarterbacks. This defense is going to be fantastic under Vic Fangio, and the problem with a lot of defensive coordinators who have adapted or have had a lot of influence from Vic Fangio's defense is that they just run the basic defense, a basic quarters coverage. They don't really change anything too much. They either run a basic cover 4 or a basic cover 6, and they really don't add or make any tweaks to it. And that's why the Minnesota Vikings defense last season, when he had DC Ed Donatel, was getting shredded and carved up because he wasn't really adding any wrinkles to it. So for Vic Fangio, when you have the godfather of this kind of defense, the originator of this defense, he's going to be able to adapt this defense and tweak it when he sees fit. And this is why I think the Dolphins are dark horse Super Bowl contenders, because we already know how good Miami's offense is going to be. Now, we just got to pray to the football gods that Tua Tagovailoa can stay healthy and that this offensive line is going to be able to keep him up. I think they're pretty good when it comes to their tackle spots. Now, I don't know how the interior of their offensive line is going to be, but with the talent that the Dolphins have at receiver and the speed that they have at wideout, you don't really need your offensive line to protect Tua all day. You just need the offensive line to be good enough to give Tua enough time to get the ball out to these wide receivers. We already know about Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but you guys don't know about my guy Chosen Anderson. Yeah, Chosen Anderson. JT, who the hell is Chosen Anderson? Robbie Anderson, people. Yes, he changed his name. His name is Chosen Anderson now. And I think him going to the Miami Dolphins was a really good pickup. I mean, they paid Cedric Wilson a lot of money during last offseason, and they didn't even use this dude at all. And there were some rumors going around that they tried to trade him, but who the hell was going to want to trade for Cedric Wilson when you paid him all that money and you didn't even use him? So I think with the addition of Robbie Anderson, it's really going to open things up on this offense. And there's some words or there's some rumors on the street that the Minnesota Vikings just released a really good running back that's from the 305 that may be looking to come back home. Miami, bring Dalvin Cook back home. Bring Dalvin Cook back to South Florida. Let this man get added to your offense and watch him work. Yeah, you do have Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, but if you had Dalvin Cook, he's an upgrade from what you already have at running back. And at the time I'm recording this, we haven't had any news about Dalvin Cook signing with the Miami Dolphins, but I do expect them to end up signing with the Dolphins. And if he doesn't, I would be fairly surprised. So this offense is going to be incredibly stacked. The Miami Dolphins, man, when you talk about a team that has the potential to be a dark horse Super Bowl contender, this is it. And the reason why I don't view them as my main Super Bowl contender like I do the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Jets is because there's a lot of things riding on Tua Tagovailoa's health. if Tua can stay healthy, the Dolphins should be able to make a deep playoff run. But if Tua isn't able to stay healthy, then there's a large chance, even with the addition of Mike White, that this team doesn't really go all that far. And if Tua isn't able to stay healthy throughout the regular season, there's a strong possibility that the Miami Dolphins may not even make it to the postseason. That's why I look at this team as a dark horse Super Bowl contender. You see, my definition of a dark horse contender is a team that has the upside to win the Super Bowl, but there are 2, maybe 3 things that they need to go their way that kind of keeps me from viewing them as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And one of those things is Tua's health. Can he stay healthy? Second, will the offensive line be able to hold up? And third, Mike McDaniel. There's times when this offense got shut down. And there were some times last year, especially when the Dolphins went on that losing streak during the later half of last year, where he was getting out-coached and he failed to make adjustments after halftime. So those are my 3 reasons why I kind of view the Miami Dolphins as a dark horse Super Bowl contender and not a legitimate Super Bowl contender, because they have a couple of things that I'm kind of a little bit concerned about going into this year, but they do have the upside and they do have the ceiling to end up winning the Super Bowl, and they possibly could end up winning the AFC East. But the addition of Vic Fangio is going to be really huge for this defense. And if you are somebody who bets on over-under win totals, or you bet on a lot of NFL games, you need to pay attention to the Miami Dolphins hiring Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator. There are not a lot of people in the national media who are talking about this, and it's a little bit surprising. You think of Vic Fangio, if there was a Hall of Fame for coordinators, he would be in it. This is one of the best defensive coordinators, not just in the NFL right now, but over the past decade. He's the highest paid DC in the league for a reason. So I think that the Miami Dolphins, with the addition of Vic Fangio and with the addition of Jalen Ramsey, plus with how good they already are on offense, they are dark horse Super Bowl contenders. And as long as Tua Tagovailoa can stay healthy, this offensive line can keep them upright, and Mike McDaniels can end up doing a better job making adjustments when this offense ends up coming out flat, I think the Miami Dolphins can end up winning the Super Bowl this year, and that's why I view them as a dark horse Super Bowl contender.